Arthur Midianga, it's perfect to be here with you today, honestly, for our first 2024 video interview. So, how's your day going?
Good.
Good,
Thanks for
good.
having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. I've been watching your art for quite some time. It has evolved throughout the time of me seeing it in the beginning to now actually being able to witness it in your studio.
Mm.
Where'd your journey in art begin, and when did you notice that you wanted to create such fine works?
I think it all started as a kid, from kindergarten, from preschool, kindergarten to grade school. I was in the newspaper. I was in galleries, just recognized for my work. So people saw me already as an artist. I was already recognized for that. Even in school, teachers would take side art projects, school, even up until grade school. And so it all started when I was a kid. I already had the ability.
Right.
I would say I nurtured it, but I didn't really know I was doing that. And so I took a 10-year hiatus, and a couple years back, 4 or 5 years ago, I had a couple experiences that just sort of reminded me of who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think through reading and doing a lot of self work, I took a small canvas one day. I just started doing it, and that's where it started to really like wake me up. Like, oh wait, the power comes from me, but it's also this is the thing that I can express myself. And so throughout that journey, yeah, it was almost like finding myself again. And it's almost like I think the evolution is me throwing up.
Okay.
It's been taking this hiatus. It's like all these things I have to say
Right.
and catching up. All these things that were hidden,
Right.
especially when I took the 10-year hiatus. And it leads me to today where I think it's starting to really form.
You mentioned a 10-year hiatus, which then stripped an emotional feeling with art throughout these 10 years, and then you came back to it.
Yes.
Visual art, yes.
Yes.
How did you manage throughout a time without art in your life, understanding now that it's something that's so important in your everyday?
I think I was expressing myself in different ways. I was really into YouTube to pursue that at some point. Uh, Even in school, when I went to school for business, I was studying econ. I was still creative and
Mm-hmm.
expressing myself in a different way. And all these sums of a part are part of my evolution.
I see.
And so when I got back into the visual, it was almost like this is like bread and water for you.
Right.
A lot of the other things like learning how to dress, putting on clothes, So art is a concept, it's creativity,
Right.
right? And so I was always working that muscle, and the visual is the easiest muscle, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. That one was like, it came natural to me, like I was saying, bread and water. And so when I came back to it, it was like, duh. It's like something hit me on the head. It was really like this, life is full of that. Sometimes it takes you a long time to really figure out who you are. How is this person that you're a kid the same person and connected to you today?
Mm-hmm.
There is this concept of like you're a child and then you go, you're an adult. And I think through mid 20s, a lot of people think that way. It's like the rite of passage. So for me, it was sort of like I'm going through a quarter life crisis.
Yeah.
For what I give or take. I was doing well in my life. People liked me. I was being respected. I was growing as a person. I was independent. And so I sort of had everything.
Right.
And like this path already made for me, and I worked hard for it. In that hiatus, at the same time I was working this creative muscle. What I was on the other end trying to teach myself how to be independent and like mature, right? And so I think it really matured my mindset how to grow ideas, how to think about things, how to plan, and each part to like I said, each part to a sum, how things are aligned. It's almost like I started doing the visual and didn't realize, oh, I've I've had this style already. I didn't realize what that style was telling me.
Okay.
It's almost like you think about martial arts and movements you do. Even when I'm drawing or painting or whatever, it's these movements come together and it sort of creates this thing. And I didn't realize that these were just reflections,
Right.
albeit not just my personal experiences, but these common threads that we go through life and this experience and even beyond the human experience, like these things that, how am I coming up with this? Looking at a reference,
Right.
I'm not, I haven't looked at a reference for a long time,
Right.
like even from grade school, right? So it'd be like, how am I coming up with these images? I'm a happy person, but someone started off really like dark imagery.
Right.
And I'm like, well, at first I always thought there was two sides to me and eventually they would have to merge. And so when I'm reaching that into myself and like have like a, through all this success, have a crack, something crack through that's
Right.
foundational. Like, oh, what is my purpose in life? What am I doing? Like, I'm doing things that fit it, but I don't feel it like it exactly aligned. And yeah, I was like, oh, just these aren't just things I made up out of nowhere.
Right. And that's one thing I want to actually touch upon, because you stated earlier while we were speaking that you were thinking about execution. You put together thought of the subject, the body, the essence, the aura, you know, things that most of the time when I think of younger people, they have to be taught. You know, it's almost like reading a book. Like, what aspects are you looking through this book to understand? And you're looking to understand the subject, you're looking to understand the character development, you're looking to understand the setting of the environment that's been placed for the viewer. And as a consumer within the arts, I feel as if it's intriguing to hear that you yourself have been thinking this way prior to, you know, even your 10-year hiatus. You know, by the time that you then went on to your 10-year hiatus, you were doing so many other things. You were expanding your knowledge and then bringing in more experiences so that you can then craft those experiences for when you came back in arts. So by the time when you get back to the fine arts, what do you do? Like, how does this start? Because you've taken this break, you're like, hey, I'm not creating art. How did you start to then understand these other entities that I'm releasing my creativity in aren't the specific narrative that I want to convey to the public because I'm an artist?
That's always been my mentality in life. If I'm very like a Swiss Army knife appendageable. I'm interested in a lot of things, but it's my mindset and work ethic in terms of, I've always had that mindset.
Right.
Like I played sports, I played basketball when I was younger, and really like understand what it takes, like how you have to build and practice and try all these things to be successful. So there's this element, but I also knew on the other side how to, like, you have to manage yourself and your values. But my friend sort of pushing me, like, that made me go like, okay, let me start putting it out there. And then I started to get some feedback. But then what really happened is COVID happens. I'm switching jobs into another industry within services while just doing the art on the side, just for myself and post. And I was never really a social media person, so I was sort of like not my all of it or how all the artwork. But people, once they would see, they're like, damn, this guy already has the work ethic and all that. But I lost a close person to me during COVID, and over here erupted almost. It just stirred up this fire in me that I was like, just looking at my mortality and like, what do I really want to leave in life? I've always, I think, I already knew as a kid, younger. I studied all. I never realized that I like to say like, oh, I gotta learn about art, but I've actually done the research, and I think it's even influenced a lot of my craft. Like, I think I was really into the Da Vinci's
Mm-hmm.
and the Galileos and the Italian artists, really the realism and stuff like that back then, and also animation that gives this abstract.
Mm-hmm.
So those two elements have always been my mindset, and especially someone like Da Vinci, how he
Mm-hmm.
was just like, could he just draw and paint? He was smart. He
Right.
knew all these things. So I knew I was inspired from then, like to think about legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And so fast forward to that moment, I'm losing the family member. I'm asking myself all these questions, and I'm like, what do I really want out of life?
Okay.
I'm doing these things. It was like this momentum that was already happening. Like I, doing the book Artist Ways, similar book before I'm even painting, and
Mm-hmm.
that starting my friend and people who didn't know me for art, almost like encouraging me to really put. And then losing someone that made me just, like I said, like a volcano. The one piece, like self-portrait. I just, from who I was, from the ashes, like.
Right.
I was already getting ready to find myself, and then this is what I want.
Right.
This is the best way that Arthur can probably tell a message, or especially for who he is right now too. Like, be who you are.
Right.
Like, I think I see the world like I'm still the kid version of myself. I'm playful. That's the curiosity my artwork brings. It's like this. Wow, I have these influences of these, great, realism type thing. There's also this playfulness that and I just wanted. I've always been like super. I'm super playful person, and it's just like I want people to just have fun.
Right. Right.
I think that's a message that I try to bring, and just be yourself. And so once I'm motivated, I'm like, this is what I want to do.
You speak of this emotion, and even your friends saying that when they first saw your artworks and tried to encourage you to continue being an artist, that they had this emotion that they felt from your works, right? When looking at your works, what is the process that comes to you as an artist when you're creating these works behind you?
Someone like Nikola Tesla, he sat and thought about it.
Right.
And when he did it on the fly. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he just did it. Just thought about everything. And I think I'm more of that Nikola Tesla. So I think a lot of it, I didn't realize, comes from, there's this strong image in my mind. So I'm trying to do it as perfect as possible, as how I see it in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows for a lot of variations, because when I was younger, like I told you, my work ethic and how I've approached it was like exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, well, it has to just come from my mind. So
Right.
I'm not gonna look at something and then do that. I'm just gonna, like, how to draw a hand and the shading and how light, everything. And so it's that little kid when he's frustrated. Even from when I'm 3 years old, I can remember, how do I draw a triceratops?
Right.
Like the horns without the lines touching. Like, I can remember that, where I'm just like so frustrated to the point I'm crying. Like,
Right.
how do you do this? I don't know.
Right.
Like, so there's that part which I think influenced image in my mind, like trying to do it as
Mm-hmm.
perfect as possible. But then also knowing, introducing colors. And when you're doing it, I mean, I could do it all in one sitting, but I don't think that would allow it to come to life the way I think they do. It's like, part of the process is maybe I'm working at 3 and 4, but there's these distinct images.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I'm trying to do it.
What may be some of those distinct images?
It's like this combination of nature,
Mm-hmm.
animals, creatures.
I see. Your works sort of feel as if sometimes there's layers of mythology implemented within them. Also, just like very, I wouldn't, and then when I say primitive, I don't mean primitive in a negative way,
Mm-hmm.
but very primitive in the sense of how they almost look as if they can be fossil-esque, or, just
Yes.
like broken down pieces, which then you have to then put together in your own mind. What I may think of this work may not be what you may think of this work, and
Yes.
so forth for the other 100 viewers as well. Um, Rather than when we look at something like this, we may be able to all come to a general understanding of the person's on fire, there's a hole, there's something that's missing in the gut, you know, this emotion of loss as we spoke. How did you then start from such a hyper realistic self reflection as we spoke, that, you know, that seems to be a topic that comes about often enough, to such a almost disassociative form of work from your normal style?
It's almost like when you have, you know, symmetry, where like you have, you know, Basquiat, which is this pure, simple.
Right.
Warhol side is like that, like machine, and like marketing and things like that. I have a business background. I think this style, when I started out, it's always been very about the detail, where, like you mentioned, the hyper realism. It's embracing change. It's a mindset. But even if you look at it across art, even in business, the whole goal is really to simplify. It's really all about that over time. You even look at some of Francis Bacon's work, but the message was still there, but he knew how to just change the players around.
Exactly.
Bit, but you still saw some similar influence. And so
I love it.
Thank you.
I'm very thankful to be able to sit here with you and dive over your works, and, you know, I look forward to seeing your new projects in the future.
Yes, thank you.